Welcome to our revision session in managerial economics. So we'll look at the first topic in economics, which is called demand theory. Demand theory. So our introductory class will basically look at how to come up with what we call market demand and individual demand. So question number one, you firstly need to understand that what individuals demand for, you and me, is what ends up to make what we call market demand. So demand has a number of factors. There are factors that affect demand for particular goods and services, and these factors may include as follows. So demand has a number of factors. So what you demand for as an individual is affected by a number of factors. So there's what we call the demand function. So what are some of the things that affect your demand as an individual? You have the price of a particular good, number one. You have the price of a complement, price of a substitute. We have income, which is denoted by letter Y. We have advertising. We have natural population. We have expectations. We have tests. We have weather. We have government policy. There are many factors that will affect demand. Now, of these factors, you must understand that there's only one factor that will cause a movement along the demand curve. So demand is always downsloping. Why? Because demand has an inverse relationship between price and quantity. So the law of demand simply states that for any good, if the price goes up P1 to P2, what will happen? You demand less of that quantity, Q1 to Q2. So this is what makes up the law of demand. So the law of demand simply says that the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded for any normal good. And this is what happens. So if something becomes expensive, you buy less of it. And this is what makes our demand curve have a negative slope. So this is our inverse demand function, which is given by P is equal to A minus PQ. So this is what we call the demand function. The demand function has a negative slope because of the inverse relationship. And we've talked about the factors that affect demand. We also have supply. Supply is upsloping, and the law of supply simply states that for any normal good, if the price goes up from P1 to P2, the quantity supplied will also increase from Q1 to Q2. So this is showing what we call a positive relationship. It is showing what we call a positive relationship. And for this reason, our supply function is given by P is equal to A plus BP. So the only difference is that the supply has a positive and the demand has a negative slope. Okay, the supply has a positive and demand has a negative slope. So what are some of the factors that affect supply? They're similar. We're waiting for you, memory. Your network threw you out. We haven't gone so far. Factors affecting supply. What are some of the factors that affect supply?
Hi. Sorry, am I sharing my screen, eh?
No, it's my screen that is being shared.
Okay, all right.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
So factors that affect demand, we said the price of that good, the income, the tastes, the preferences, the related goods that can be substitutes. What are substitutes? The substitutes are goods that can be substituted for each other. For instance, if the price of tea will go up, the demand for coffee will go up, which is a substitute. And the complement, these are goods which go hand in hand, like car and fuel. So if the price of cars will fall, we'll demand more fuel. Other factors that affect demand are expectations of future prices. So you know that if the price of fuel will go up at midnight, people will demand more of it. The population size, which is N. So if you have a larger population for younger people, so they'll buy certain goods. All right, weather. And then factors that affect supply have the price of that good or service, the cost of production, the technology, the price of related goods, the expectations of future prices, the number of sellers and buyers, government policies, and some natural conditions like weather. So these are some of the factors that affect supply. So supply is affected by those factors. So if this is not controlled, the consumer would want to, as much as possible, go down, and the supplier would want as much as possible to go up. But they will need to what? Agree at a point that we call equilibrium. So equilibrium is simply a point which demand is equal to supply. So supply will meet demand at a point called equilibrium. Are we together so far? So, for instance,
I, I,
mhm.
I'm a bit lost on equilibrium because I know this is where now demand become tricky. Are you able to please kindly run us through again on equilibrium,
Okay,
the third plotting?
so we have alluded to the fact that demand is what? Downsloping. And supply is what? Upsloping. Are we together on that one?
Yes.
So if left uncontrolled, the consumer will always want to get a low price, and the supplier will always want to uh, charge a high price. So there's what we call market equilibrium, which is a point where demand equals supply. It is where the quantity of consumers are willing to buy and are able to buy exactly what is equal to the quantity that producers are willing and able to sell at a particular price. So we must learn how to do the graphs. So this, can you tell me, is this a demand function or a supply function? 100 minus 2Q. Which one is a demand function and which one is a supply function? I gave you a clue. 10 plus 3Q. The demand has a negative slope and the supply has a positive slope. So which one is demand? This one here, right? And which is supply? This one here. So how do we sketch these curves? You take it to grade 12. You put the numbers on one side and the letters on one side. So this one will be what? P plus 2Q is equal to 100. What have I done? I simply brought this one this side. There's an invisible one there. So when I'm sketching, the P is on this axis and the Q is on this axis. So we want to calculate the intercepts. So when there's no number, we imagine there's an invisible one. So 1 into 100, you get 100 there. Then 2 into 100 is 50. So if we're going to sketch the demand function, it will cut the Q, the P at 100, and the Q at 50. Let me go through that again. For all linear curves, don't get confused. If you have a demand function, for instance, 2P plus 3Q is equal to 30. They're all on one side. So we want to sketch there. What number is before P? There's a 2. 2 into 30 is 15. What number is before the Q? There's a 3. 3 into 30 is 10. So if we want to sketch here, we know demand is downsloping. So why would it cut the P at 15? Why would it cut the Q at 10? Then the origin is 0. So let's go back now to our demand function, which is here. So P is equal to 100 minus 2Q. We are clear that this is a demand function because there's a negative here, negative slope. So how do you sketch linear equations? You put the letters on one side. This minus 2, when it crosses the equal sign, it will be positive 2. Then quadrilateral 100. Okay, are we clear so far? Are we together so far?
I am.
So meaning if there's no number, there's an invisible one. So 1 into 100, this is where the
Yes.
100 is. 2 into 100, this is where the 50 is. So this is how we're going to sketch. So on the P, there's 100. On the Q, there's 50. That's how we sketch that one. Let's do the same for P, for supply. So we're going to have P minus 3Q is equal to what? 10, right? What did we do? We just push this one across the side. So 1 into 10, we put a 10 there. Negative 3 into 10 is negative 3.33. So if we're going to sketch this one, on the P, it will cut at 10. On the Q, though we don't consider negatives, just for sketching purposes, to come from negative 3.33. So this is how we are sketching. It starts from 10. Then what do we call this point where they meet? It's called equilibrium. So now, what happens at equilibrium? Demand is called what? Supply. At equilibrium, demand is equal to supply. Are we together? So our demand here is what? 10 minus what? 2Q. And what is our supply? 10 plus 3Q. So we want to calculate our equilibrium quantity and our equilibrium price. So we are fulfilling the law which says at equilibrium demand is equal to supply. So here we put the numbers on one side. So the 100, when the 10 goes aside, it will subtract minus 10. What happens to the 2? When it goes aside, the 2 will be positive. It will add to the what? To the 3. Please, when you're behind, feel free to stop me so that we are on the same page. Because this is coming definitely. Okay. So 2 plus 3 is 5. We divide both sides by 5. So when we divide 5 into 90, our equilibrium quantity becomes 18. So where there's Q, we're going to put 18. This is 18 here. Then to find the equilibrium price, we choose any of these two. So we will get the same answer. So where there's Q, we can put the 18. So 10 plus 3Q. So instead of putting Q, we're going to put 18. So this will give us our equilibrium price as 64. So this is how we calculate our equilibrium price and quantity. Question, if we put this 18 in the demand function, do we get the same? Yes, we should get a 64. So this is what happens at equilibrium. Are we together so far?
Following.
So I'll again repeat on how we do the sketching. So we're going to go through the exam question in the mid-test to understand how equilibrium is done. So I must also make mention to say when we're dealing with the factors that affect demand, I said only price is a factor that will cause a movement along the demand curve. So movements are as follows in the demand curve. When the price goes up, like I said, the quantity demanded goes down. When the quantity demanded goes up, the price goes down. So this movement you're seeing here is a movement along. But what happens if there is an increase in income? There will be a shift. So this shift, a shift looks like this. The demand curve will move from this point maybe to the right, this point. So the whole schedule will move from the left to the right. So this is what we call a shift. So if any of these factors, income, advertising, population increases, you shift from D1 to D2. So this is what a shift. So I need you to understand these important parameters. All right. So let's go through another example before I proceed on the individual demand and the other key issues. So the way we make market demand is as follows. So you can have firm 1 and firm 2. So the two firms, firm 1 and firm 2. This one is demanding as follows. This one is demanding as follows. Then when you compute all this, you're going to have what we call the market demand. The market demand is simply made up of what? Different people's what? Expectations in terms of demand. Okay? So these demands are, they come from individuals. So this is what we call the market demand. It is comprised of individuals. So we're going to look at this example here where we're given two markets. There's individual 1 and individual 2. So we're being asked to come up with the market demand of the product, and we graphically show this information there. So this is coming from what I'm just from explaining. So let's okay, so we want to look at this question here. Suppose the total market demand for a product consists of two demands, individual 1 and individual 2. So the demand of the two individuals are given as follows. So we have two individuals here. So what is the market demand? What did I say? The market demand is a composition of two. All right, so we need to add these two to make the market demand. When you add these two, it will give us market demand. So firm 1, we have the following demand function. 20 minus 2p. In individual 2, we have 40 minus 5p. So we need to add these two. So the market demand will just be the addition. So D1 plus D2. So we just add these two. 20 minus 2p, which is here, plus 40 minus 5p here. So when we add them, the 20 plus 40 is 60. Minus 2 minus 5 is 7p. So when you add them, this is how we make the market demand. So this is a market demand. As simple as that. If I ask you to sketch this one here, how do you sketch this? I said you put the letters on one side, right? So Q.
Sorry, are you sharing? Are you doing calculations?
Oh yeah, I'm sharing. So here we have two individuals,
Okay,
individual
no
1 and individual 2. So individual 1 was 20 minus
okay.
2p, individual 2 was 40 minus 5p. So when you add these two, 20 minus plus 40 is 60. minus 2 minus 5,
Yes.
7p. So this is what makes our market demand. All together, just issue
Okay.
of adding them.
All right.
Can you forget that? No.
Yeah, I
All right. Then just to, although you're not asked to sketch them, I just wanted you to understand how to sketch them. So this is Q. When this one goes inside, it will add in. So Q1 plus 2p is equal to what? Is equal to what? 20. So what number is here? 2 into 20 is 10. So here we're cutting at 10. 1 into 20 is 20. So this is for firm 1 or individual 1. Again, here we'll put the letters on one side. Q plus 5p is equal to what? 40. So here there's a 1. 1 into 40 is what? 8. 5 into 40, sorry, is 8. Then 1 into 40 is 40. So this is for individual number 2. So when we add these two firms, it will give us this as a market what? Market demand. So this is Q plus 7p is equal to 60. So 7 into 7p, that is 8.44. So this is about 8.4. Then 1 into 60, this is about 60. So this is what we call the market. It's simply an addition of these two firms. So I just want you to appreciate what is happening here. So the second question we've been asked is to say, as a manager, what do information you derive from the market? What information do you derive from the market? So you're a manager and you're being asked, what information are we able to derive from the market? So managers can use these demand curves for many reasons. Number one, for price sensitivity. So the slopes, remember I was saying that the demand curve has a slope there. So those slopes indicate how much demand will fall when prices go up. So what is one of the uses for the demand curve is to show price sensitivity. Are we together? Price sensitivity. Number one. Let me show you the notes. Number two, it is used for forecasting. To forecast is to uh, be able to predict the future sales. So demand analysis is used for number one, price sensitivity. The slope will tell you by how much the price will rise when demand goes down. Number two, it is used for predicting sales. At any given point, you may have to predict using those equations. Number three, it will help you in profit maximization and profit planning. So managers can estimate which prices will maximize profits. Number three, the curves are there to ensure that you market segment. So demand analysis will highlight different consumer groups. And also it's important for strategic decisions. So new product launches, promotions, and pricing strategies usually rely on the estimates that you're going to have. So there's always a question to do something to apply. Applicability. Any questions before I proceed to the second question? Question part B. Discuss graphically the impact of quantity demanded using equilibrium determined by both supply and demand by holding other factors constant of the changes as follows. An increase in consumer income, an increase in price of substitutes, an increase in price of a good, a decline in population and expectations. So what you are seeing here are factors that affect what? demand. So the examiner wants us to graphically show the impact that this one has when on a particular commodity. So I explained to you in the preamble on the factors that affect demand. So what is the impact? So firstly, the impact on quantity demanded with equilibrium analysis. So we are going to look at each set one by one, and we see how graphically that would affect the movement of the slopes. Then we explain the implication. So we want to look at the impact on quantity demanded with equilibrium analysis. So an increase in consumer income. What happens? So consumer income has the following implications. Income is denoted by what? By Y. So for income, there are two things that are involved. If your income elasticity is more than, it's negative, it means you have an inferior good. And if it's positive, it's a normal good. So inferior goods are goods when your income goes up, you demand less of that. For instance, a black and white TV and a color TV. So if your income goes up, not because you can't afford a black and white TV, but you can afford better. So meaning a black and white TV becomes what? An inferior good. Then when we go to cross price elasticity. So if you have a negative, it means these are complements. If you have a positive, it means that they're substitute goods. Just giving you clues so that you understand.
Sorry, I lost you there on the one you were explaining before. You were saying if it's negative, then it's what? Not this one you're explaining, but the one before this one.
Inferior good. So when you're dealing with income, there are two things that happen. What happens if your income goes up? Okay, you demand more of that particular good. So that good is now called normal good. But if the income goes up and you're demanding less of that particular good, it is called an inferior good. So now I'm going to use the graphs to explain each of these ones here so that you understand um, the graphical movements, because this is what the examiner wants you to know. So let's start with income. So the impact on equilibrium analysis is as follows. Number one, um, if there's an increase in consumer income, what happens to the curves? So if there's an increase in consumer income, this is what happens. The demand function will shift to the right from D0 to D1 to the right. Okay, it applies here. Let me put the
I'm
equilibrium.
not able to see what I know you're plotting, but I'm not able to see.
Okay, can you see now?
Oh, yes, I can.
Okay. So what happens when income increases? So for normal goods, if there's an increase in the income, the demand curve will shift to the right from D0 to D1. Okay. So what kind of a good is this? It is called a normal good. So this will cause that equilibrium will move from the initial equilibrium here, E1 to E2. And the prices will move from where? From P1 to P2. Just to simplify this, in case you don't want to forget, just know that if there's an increase in income, it is called what? A normal good. Okay? And if you're demanding more of that particular good, it's called a normal good. So the demand function will shift from D1 to D2. That's all. Okay? Now, what happens if the price of a substitute good goes up? What happens if the price of a substitute goes up? Remember, Give me an example of a substitute good. What are substitute goods? Let's be applicable here. I'll give you an example of a substitute good, coffee and tea. So what do you think happens when the price of coffee goes up?
People will buy tea instead.
Yes, the tea producers will be happy. Why? Because the substitute, so meaning people will demand less of coffee and shift to what? To tea. So we call that the substitution effect. The what? The substitution effect. So an increase in the price of a particular substitute will make the current good cheaper. So the shift will be to the right. Okay? So we're looking at the current good. So if the price of a substitute will increase, meaning the good that we have here right now, we enjoy. So the demand will increase from D1, D0 to D1. So this is going to cause a shift to the right. So it will cause our equilibrium to now move from E0 to E1. So this will cause a movement of the demand curve from D0 to D1. And what effect do we call this? The substitution effect. For income, the income effect. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. There's nothing I can do about these things. You just need to know them, man. These are theories of dead men, so you need to really understand them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happens if there's an increase in the price of that good? Increase in the price of that good. So an increase in the price of the good, uh, if it's a complement, it, it will shift. But if you're dealing with that particular good, it will move along the curve. So the movement of that particular good will cause a movement along. If the price of bread alone goes up, so there'll be a movement from P1 to P2, which will cause a quantity demanded from Q1 to Q2. So this one will be a movement along from point A to point B of that particular good. So it will be a movement along, no shift. But what happens if there's a decline in population? A decline will cause what? A shift to the left. So demand will it will shrink from D0 to D1. If more you just need to understand the concept of what? Supply is always upsloping. So the equilibrium will move now from the original. Whenever you put zero, it means original. From the original equilibrium, the next equilibrium. So this one will cause a movement to the what? To the left. And there's a decline in population. So meaning you're reducing population. Yeah. Are we following? So you need to understand this very well. Okay? You need to understand this very well. Now, what happens lastly if there's an increase in the price, expectations of the price of fuel? Can you somebody try on that one? If the expectations increase, what do you think will happen to the demand? There will be a shift to the left or to the right?
Hmm. Are we talking about fuel? The question again.
The question,
Yeah, what's the question?
what happens if there's an increase in price for um, here's a question here. Expectations
Mm.
of an increase in the price of that particular good, what will happen?
Are we talking about fuel?
Any good, yes, fuel. So we'll shift to the right.
We shift to the right.
Yes, so that's all. All right, so we end here. We'll continue tomorrow.